Hey guys, what is up? It is Jay, and today I am doing a bookshelf tour. This has been my most requested video ever since I made my channel, and I'm finally getting to it. Now, I have a lot of trinkets on my shelves, so I will probably kind of talk about those, but not really go into too much detail, because this video is most likely going to be kind of long. Speaking of which, we should probably just jump right into it. So just to get a grasp of what we're looking at here, I have my two main shelves, and first we're going to be looking at this one. Then I also have a newer brown shelf that you guys probably don't really see in my videos that much, and it's going to be a little bit annoying getting in there because it is really close to where my computer is, so that's going to be a bit tricky, but we can do it. I also have a small shelf on the opposite side of my room that mostly holds movies and games, but it does have some books which I will briefly cover. So starting off on this top shelf here, it's kind of a mix, but the majority of them are kind of hardback classics. Then it goes into kind of a mix of things. I have a few things on this shelf, such as this carved pirate and fisherman that I got in Nova Scotia, as well as this cool leather bookmark that I got at Citadel Hill Canon pencil sharpener. And the last bit of decoration on this shelf is a silver pocket watch. And no, I am not trying to hypnotize you. First up is a collection of 5 of Charles Dickens' novels: Oliver Twist, A Tale of Two Cities, David Copperfield, A Christmas Carol, and Great Expectations. Next is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales by the Brothers Grimm, Le Morte d'Arthur, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table by Sir Thomas Malory, Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, The Nest by Cynthia Dupree Sweeney, The Explorers Guild by Kevin Costner and John Baird, Moby Dick or the Whale by Herman Melville, An Irish County Village by Patrick Taylor, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, By Gaslight by Stephen Price, The Princess Bride by William Goldman, Anne of Green Gables, and Anne of Avonlea by Ellen Montgomery, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, The Sci-Fi Chronicles by Guy Haley. I also have this brilliantly cute little selected works by Edgar Allan Poe, as well as this small vintage gems from George Eliot. Now, one shelf down, we have kind of my sci-fi shelf. It mostly has Doctor Who and Star Wars stuff, as well as a few other books mixed in there. I have this copy of War Games. I think I just put that up there to go with Ready Player One. David Tennant, The 10th and Best Doctor, a Dalek. This little adipose that my booktube friend sent me. Shout out to Page by Page. A sonic screwdriver. BB-8. This TARDIS mug that makes the TARDIS disappear and appear on the opposite side when it is warmed up. Also a TARDIS cup. I also have 2 Doctor Who books back there, but I'm not going to pull those out because that would be a lot of work. First up is The Martian by Andy Weir, Ready Player One, and Armada by Ernest Cline, Vicious by V.E. Schwab, and Sillery Justice by Anne Leckie. The Doctor Who Barnes & Noble leatherbound of The Silent Stars Go By and Touched by an Angel, the Star Wars Trilogy, the C-3PO edition, Aftermath by Chuck Wendig, Bloodline, Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and Lost Stars. All 3 of those were by Claudia Gray. Next, I have these 4 young adult Star Wars books. I will not mention the authors just to save time, but there is Moving Target, Before the Awakening, Smuggler's Run, and The Weapon of a Jedi. Death Troopers by Joe Schraber. Omen and Allies by Christy Golden. This kind of ends the Star Wars books. Next is The Vagrant by Peter Newman. And the last book is Iron and Blood by Gail Z. Martin and Larry N. Martin. Moving down to the next shelf, I'll first look at the trinkets. I have a Totoro plushie from My Neighbor Totoro, Marty McFly, my childhood hero, as well as a replica of his hoverboard that I got in a loot crate, and I got this special edition Doc Brown Pop Funko in the same loot crate. Oh, and the Pop Funko DeLorean. This shelf kind of has a mix of different genres, but first up is The Elfstones of Shannara by Terry Brooks, A Darker Shade of Magic, A Gathering of Shadows, and A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab, The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson, Forest Mage by Robin Hobb, The Invisible Library, and The Masked City by Genevieve Cogman, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, Hollow City, and Library of Souls, all by Ransom Riggs, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, Jim Henson's The Storyteller, The Novelization, Soundless by Rochelle Mead, Flights and Times and Mysterious Times by Emma Travaine, The Glass Sentence by S.E. Grove, The Time Travelers, The Time Thief, The Time Quake, all by Linda Buckley Archer, The Alchemist by Michelle Scott, an ARC copy of The Blackthorn Key, and The Mark of the Plague, both by Kevin Sands, and the last book is Legend by Mary Lou. Moving down a shelf, a amiibo of Mewtwo, as well as a Pokewalker, which sadly no longer works, some droid from Star Wars, and the last thing is a remote-controlled Wally. Oh, I forgot a Camp Half-Blood bracelet. The first book is Wildwood by Colin Malloy, File Under 13 Suspicious Incidents, as well as the majority of A Series of Unfortunate Events series by Lemony Snicket. Next up we have the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan in this edition, as well as in the older edition. Also The Lost Hero and the Red Pyramid by Rick Riordan. The House of Secrets by Chris Columbus and Ned Vizzini. The Night Gardener by Jonathan Auxier. The complete first serial of the Spiderwick Chronicles by Tony DiTerlizzi and Holly Black. Alright, so moving on to the next black shelf on the left. This one is mostly dedicated to epic fantasy, at least for the first 3 shelves. The majority of them are anyway. So starting off with the top shelf here. Starting off with the decorations, I have this Vault-Tec bobblehead from Fallout, this Legend of Zelda mug which looks like a shield, the Hyrule shield in tin can format, as well as a 8-bit Link tin, which goes with this 8-bit Link amiibo. Also on the side, I have this Triforce painting that my cousin painted me, and she used glow-in-the-dark paint for the actual Triforce part, which is really cool. So to start off my R.A. Salvatore collection, I have Mortalis, a collector's edition bind-up of Homeland, Exile, and Sojourn, the first 3 books in the Legend of Driss series, a collector's bind-up of the Crystal Shard, Streams of Silver, and the Halfling's Gem, a collector's bind-up of Paths of Darkness, and another bind-up for the Legacy of the Drow series. And then I have paperback copies of the Halfling's Gem, the Legacy, Starless Night, and Siege of Darkness, the Orc King and the Ghost King, and then I own The Last Threshold and Promise of the Witch King. Now, if you know this series, you can probably tell that I have a lot of books out of order, because I don't own all the ones in the series. I've just been kind of collecting the series as I find them on sale, so I don't own all of the ones in between, and I'm missing quite a few. Also hiding up top, I have Vector Prime, which is a Star Wars novel by R.A. Salvatore, as well as The Bear and the Ancient, which are from the Saga of the First King. I also have The Companions and Night of the Hunter. And then the last books on this shelf are Aragon, Eldest, Brysinger, and Inheritance, all books in the Inheritance cycle by Christopher Paolini. Moving down a shelf, we have quite a few more fantasy novels. I have a few odd decorations here, like these dried out plants and this Lego ninja assassin dude, as well as a Lego Gandalf the Grey, and another Gandalf the Grey. And then in these vials, I plan on eventually putting some powdered metal or something to go with the Mistborn series. And then in the corner here, I have Bert's Bott's flavored beans, and yes, I did eat one of the packages. That was an adventure. The first book on this shelf is The Last Wish, Blood of Elves, and Sword of Destiny, all of those by Andrzej Zapowski. The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. After the King, Stories in Honor of J.R.R. Tolkien. This has multiple authors because it has short stories in here. The Children of Hurin by J.R.R. Tolkien. The Battles of Tolkien and Tolkien An Illustrated Atlas, both by David Day. The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings by Tolkien. Elantris, The Final Empire, The Well of Ascension, and The Hero of Ages. All of these are by Brandon Sanderson, and these are the US editions. I also own The Final Empire and The Hero of Ages in the UK editions, which I do like better, and I ordered the second one, but it got mixed up or something, so I don't have that. I'm currently reading The Hero of Ages. The Way of Kings and Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. And the last book is The Rhythmatist. Moving down, we have some more fantasy novels. I have an amiibo of Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII, as well as a Figma figure of Samus Aran from the Metroid games. First up is the Castings trilogy by Pamela Freeman, The Ice Dragon by George R.R. Martin, as well as the first 4 books in the Song of Ice and Fire series, The Way of Shadows, Shadow's Edge, Beyond the Shadows, The Black Prism, and The Blinding Knife, all of those by Brent Weeks. The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch, The Name of the Wind, The Wise Man's Fear, and The Slow Regard of Silent Things, all of those by Patrick Rothfuss. Then there is the 10th anniversary edition of The Name of the Wind. Rogues, an anthology by multiple authors, some of which are on this shelf, and A Sail by Ian C. Esselmont. Now besides The Labyrinth, the rest of the books on the shelf are all young adult. So on this shelf, I have a Pop Funko of the Goblin King to go with The Labyrinth, as well as a few random Pokemon figures, Tom Nook from Animal Crossing, and Starscream from Transformers, and also a Mockingjay pin. So first up there is Jim Henson's The Labyrinth novelization, the Divergent books by Veronica Roth, the Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins, The Knife of Never Letting Go and the Ask and the Answers by Patrick Ness, The Thousandth Floor by Catherine McGee, The Assassin's Blade, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, and Queen of Shadows, all by Sarah J. Maas. Cinder, Scarlet, and Cress by Marissa Meyer. And the last 2 books are The Search for Wondla and A Hero for Wondla by Tony DiTerlizzi. Moving down to the last shelf on this shelf, it's mostly middle grade here with a few things mixed in. The Fire Within by Chris DeLacy. Red Riding Hood by Catherine Hardwicke. This is actually based off of that weird movie adaptation. Secret of the Dragon by Margaret Wise and Tracy Hickman. Inkheart and Inkspell by Cornelia Funk. The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. World of Warcraft Traveler by Greg Wiseman. The Lost City of Far, The Neverwar, The Reality Bug, and Blackwater, all books in the Pendragon series by D.J. McHale. The Floating Island by Elizabeth Hayden. Midnight for Charlie Bone and the Hidden King, and The Time Twister, all by Jenny Nemo. Blood for Blood by Ryan Groden. Also lying on the side there I have a few books. I have The Last Descendants by Matthew Kirby, Ribblestrop by Andy Mulligan, and The Zombie Survival Guide, Complete Protection from the Living Dead by Max Brooks, because you never know when you're going to need that. Mr. Monday by Garth Nix. The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funk. Island of Silence by Lisa McMahon. The Winter Nights by Paul Stewart and Chris Riddle. Books 1 and 2 in the Alex Rider series by Anthony Horowitz. The High Sky Adventures of Blue Jay the Pirate by Scott Nash. Finally, Igraine the Brave by Cornelia Funk. Between my shelves, I have a painting of Link from The Legend of Zelda that my cousin painted me. In between my shelves, I have a mix of books. The majority of them are just game guides. There's also a few comics in there. Well, there's A Link to the Past and The Hobbit in graphic novel format. There's also just some books on calligraphy and letterpress printing, and just some random stuff mixed in there. I won't go through all of those individually. Alright, so moving on to my brown shelf. At the very top, I have a collection of Star Trek, Star Wars, Friends, Seinfeld, Clockwork Mask, a Splatoon cup. I don't know, it's a really odd mix. So on this shelf, I have a few decorations. You can see my Goku figure there, but I'm going to try and go a little bit more faster because these bookshelf tours can get a little bit long-winded. So I'll start with my Jane Austen books. I have Pride and Prejudice, Persuasion, and Sense and Sensibility. And Pride and Prejudice Zombies. Next, I have Animal Farm and 1984 by George Orwell. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Other Strange Tales by Robert Louis Stevenson. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Dracula by Bram Stoker. Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Homer the Odyssey. Tales from the Thousand and One Nights. The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini. The Broken Hours by Jacqueline Baker. The Call of Cthulhu and Other Weird Stories by H.P. Lovecraft. A Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne. The Adventures of Robin Hood by Paul Creswick. A very ugly copy of the complete works of William Shakespeare, Volume 2. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Ben-Hur by Lew Wallace. Hamlet by Shakespeare. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. The Mystery of Edwin Drood by Charles Dickens. Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. The Winter Ghost by Kate Moss. The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. Impossible Views of the World by Lucy Ives. The Promise of the Child by Tom Toner. And The History of Love by Nicole Krauss. This next shelf is a big mix of genres. As you can see, I have my Wheel of Time series, as well as a ton of, middle grade books. I also just leave my collection of bookmarks down there. Bobblehead Groot is on this shelf, and this Gundam that took far too long to build. So my first Wheel of Time book is over here because I am in the middle of reading it. I also have quite a few others in the series, but I don't have the whole series. You could pause them if you want to read the names. I also have Outcast of Redwall and Mossflower by Brian Jock. Next are a few of these Pokemon children's books that are based off of a single episode in the show. After that is the 5 Goosebumps books I own, and again, if you want to read the titles, feel free to pause. The Fall and Castle by Garth Nix. After that is all of the books in the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Then I have Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis. Next I have The Forest of Silence, The Lake of Tears, City of the Rats, The Shifting Sands, The Maze of the Beast, Valley of the Lost, Return to Dell, and Dread Mountains. I just realized this was totally out of order. That series was the Deltora Quest series. And then I also have books 1 and 3 in the Shadowlands of Deltora, as well as Tales of Deltora. All of these books are by Emily Rada. And the final book on this shelf is Bionicle Chronicles Collection by C.A. Hapka. Moving down, I kind of have to go at an angle so I don't bump into my computer desk, but this shelf has a lot of my writing books, as well as books on poetry. Then it also just has some random ones that I couldn't fit on a shelf somewhere. The New Long Poem Anthology by Sharon Thezin. The Art of Short Fiction by Gary Geddes. Writing for Money by Lorianne Oberlin. Grammatically Correct. Copy Editing, A Practical Guide by Karen Judd. Writing the Breakout Novel by Donald Maass. On Writing by Stephen King. Imaginative Writing by Janet Burroway. The Dictionary of Literary Terms and Literary Theory. The Fellowship, The Literary Lives of the Inklings by Philip and Carol Zaleski. In Fine Form, A Contemporary Look at Canadian Foreign Poetry. Open Field, 30 Contemporary Canadian Poets, The Collected Works of Billy the Kid by Michael Ondaatje, The Best Canadian Poetry 2016, The Elements of Typographic Style by Robert Bringhurst, Proof Smokes by Andrew Steeves, Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood, The Road by Cormac McCarthy, The Green Mile by Stephen King, The Revenant by Michael Punk, The Rabbitback Literature Society by Pacey Ilmari Jeskalainen, New Tab by Golame Morissette, The Goat by Anne Fleming, Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, The Silkworm by Robert Galbraith, Caraval by Stephanie Garber, Shadow of the Mountain by Cliff Graham, More Than a Game by A. Vasiliev, Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion, and Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. So finally on the bottom shelf, as you can see, I have a bunch of Pokemon-related things at the bottom. I'm not really going to go over all of the items, but this shelf is mostly dedicated to comic books and manga, and then there's also, I think, a few other things in there. Starting with the stuff on the top, I have Volume 1 of The Complete Elf Quest by Wendy Pinney and Richard Pinney. Then there is a bunch of Pokemon manga, Batman Nightfall Volume 1, Batman and Son, Ghost World by Daniel Klaus, How to Tell If Your Cat is Plotting to Kill You, Quest for the Spark, Tall Tales, and Rose. All of these are spin-offs from the Bone graphic novels by Jeff Smith. Next, there is 9 volumes of the Bone graphic novels. Volume 1 of The Amulet by Kazu Kabushi. Volume 2 of Naruto. Volumes 1, 2, and 3 of Attack on Titan. Next, there is The Legend of Zelda, The Minish Cap, Oracle of Seasons, Twilight Princess, and Ocarina of Time in manga format. Sherlock, A Study in Pink. Blood Lad, Volume 1, 2, and 3. Full Metal Alchemist, Volumes 10, 11, and 12 in this one bind-up. I know I have a lot of manga that's, like, out of order. Next, I have Sword Art Online Progressive, Volumes 1, 2, and 3 by Reki Kawahara. All of these are not actually manga, they're light novels. I also have Volumes 3 and 4 of Sword Art Online Fairy Dance. Once again, these are the light novels, not the manga. And Volume 2 of Sword Art Online Aencrad, the light novel. After that, I have L Change the World, written by M. And the final book on this shelf is a 30th anniversary Capcom character encyclopedia. And then, like I said, on the opposite side of my room, I have a small shelf with some games and books and movies mixed in. I'm not going to go through all the books, but as you can see, there are some Assassin's Creed books, some Dragonlance books, and some other series mixed in there. On the second shelf, there is the Cleric Quintlet by R.A. Salvatore, as well as a bunch of other Forgotten Realms books and Dragonlance books. And yeah, that's about it. Alright, so that was my 2017 bookshelf tour. I'm probably going to make this like a yearly thing, I'm thinking. I hope you guys enjoyed. My shelves are regularly pretty messy, so I had to clean them up. Especially with black shelves, you get a lot of dust. There was a lot of dusting. It's probably a good thing I cleaned them up. It makes me feel better. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I will leave a link down below to my Instagram and all my social media stuff if you want to check that out. I will also leave some videos on the sides if you are interested in watching those. Okay, so that's about it. I will see you next time.